Hello everybody, welcome to fly number 9 of Top 20 Fly Patterns for Beginners from the Hareline Dubbin Fly Tying Material Kit. We're working our way through cover to cover, and this is number 9 on the schedule. This is the Pheasant Tail Nymph. We're going to be using the, size 14 wet nymph hook. Our thread, we're going to be rocking that A-dot brown. The tail, the body, and that wing case are all pheasant tail feather. We got a copper wire ribbing, and that thorax is going to be a little bit of a peacock herl. How about that? Should be a lot of fun. This is, I say it for every pattern. It's a pretty productive pattern. What can I say? That's why this is a top 20. Everything's included in this kit. Got a little book. All I'm doing is changing out threads in between live sessions, getting a recording down for my Project Healing Waters participants who each got one of these kits to tie with at home. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and slide over to the bench and get this pheasant tail nymph. I put in the description and in the description of this pattern, P.T.N. Papa, let's see, it would be Papa Tango November. P.T.N. That's kind of short. What do you call those? Acronym. The acronym for the pheasant tail nymph. P.T.N. So here we are. Let's go ahead and I grabbed the wrong hooks out of the case. I grabbed the dry fly hook. We need the wet fly hook. There we go. Set the rest of this box back down. Sorry about that delay. So here is the wet fly hook, size 14. Do not get it confused with the size 14 dry fly hook. And you're going to ask yourself, what's the difference? Well, the nymph hook is going to be a slightly heavier gauge wire, and that's what makes it a nymph hook. Whereas dry fly hooks are typically manufactured on a lighter gauge wire to keep it light, because our dry flies we're going to keep up top. So we'll take our size 14 nymph hook and get that secured in our vise. Thread, we're going to use that A-dot brown, and first things first, we're going to start this off up front. We're going to go about an eye's length behind the eye. Eye. Whoops, oh, my own finger. There we go. Once we have that started, I'm going to move my light over a little bit. Go ahead and trim that off. Alright, we're going to continue our thread wraps towards the rear. When we get back here, we're going to be careful of that tip of that hook. We're going to park our thread right there. We're going to tie in our tail, which again, this is a ring neck pheasant tail. It's a natural. Sometimes you can get some really cool dyed colors. So we'll go ahead and slide this out of the bag. There we go. All right, let's check this feather out. What a beauty, huh? So what we're going to want to do is I like to start at the bottom, and I'm going to take, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 of these. You can either use your scissors to trim them, or you can just grab a hold of it and give it a quick little yank. And what we want to make sure is that the tips of these are all lined up. Alright, when we go to tie this in, we're going to go about 1/2 hook's length for our tail. Let's go ahead and do one soft wrap to capture it. And a couple more wraps with increased tension. Alright, we'll wrap that forward a little bit. About halfway. Go ahead and just trim off our excess right there. Nice and close. Alright, now we're going to tie in our copper wire. Again, I like to keep my wires on the near side of the hook. Once we have that in, we'll add some tight wraps, working our way from the front to the rear. Pull a little bit more wire out. There we go. Beautiful. Alright, let's go ahead and get some more. And this we're going to end up wrapping around the shank of the hook to build our body. So we're going to take another small clump. Line up the tips. Just strip it down and off. We're going to tie this in by the tips. Come in at an angle. One soft wrap to capture it. And a couple more wraps with increased tension. Alright, we'll wrap our thread forward. Locking that all down. Just gonna run that all the way forward. Alright, I'm going to park my thread right at about the halfway point between the hook and the eye. The tip of the hook and the tip of the eye. Take touching wraps, slightly overlapping if you will. Use your finger, push down on that, and you can get it to go around. Alright, take your time. We're going to get full coverage on this. Again, I like to just put my finger on there. And definitely mind the tip of that hook. It will slow down your operation. Alright, we're right at about that halfway point. I'm going to take one last wrap. Holding my material up and to the right with my right hand. Left hand, I'm going to take my bobbin, pass it directly over top a few times. Nice and tight. Locking that down, just like so. Perhaps on the next video, or the next fly, we're going to zoom in a little bit tighter. Just kind of checking it out in the monitor a little bit. Alright, so we're going to bring our ribbing forward now. We're going to do this as a counter wrap. So this is going to be the opposite direction that we wrapped our peacock herl in. And this is going to help lock that, or not our peacock herl, but our pheasant tail in. Nice and even. You're going to get 3-4 turns or so. Secure that down with some locking wraps. Switch hands, a couple more nice tight pulls. Alright, I'm going to use my nippers. If you use your scissors, be sure to open your scissors all the way up. That's where you want to cut your wire with. And I've seen some scissors, that fly tying scissors, that actually have a little bit in there that's kind of more or less designed to help it cut wire. So, alright, so to kind of work our way up our pheasant tail, I'm going to grab another small little clump. This is going to be our wing case. I'm going to tie this in tips forward. I'm going to go a little bit into the meat part of it. That one kind of fell apart on me. So again, I'm just going to grab a little bit. Tips forward. I'm going to tie this in so the top side of that feather is down. Sometimes I gotta spin my bobbin counterclockwise or anti-clockwise. That'll help keep everything from spinning around on us where we don't want it to spin. Just make sure we keep that tied in on top, just like we did on that hare's ear, the turkey quill. Alright, we'll trim off the excess up front, just like that. Let's go ahead and get our final ingredient, our strung peacock herl. I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3 strands. I tie it in by the tips, or tips forward. If you're being really frugal, you could probably get a couple of flies per batch. But we'll see what we do on the next one. Trim off that nice and close. Alright, so with my peacock herl, my 1, 2, 3 strands, I'm going to twist those forward. Just like so. And as I wrap, I'm going to keep twisting. And it's a delicate balance. You don't want to over twist. Once you get it going, it seems to work out pretty well. Make sure your thread is directly behind the eye of that hook. We're building our thorax. Alright, we're up front. Secure this with a couple of locking wraps behind. Get some tension on that, couple wraps in front, and we'll park that on the back side of that. Trim off the excess, nice and close. Alright, now we're going to carefully fold this turkey quill forward and tie this, or not our turkey quill, but our pheasant tail. Turkey was the last feather. Wrap underneath. And again, this is kind of an option. If you want to take your bodkin, carefully poke that out just a little bit before you trim it. You don't have to jam the whole thing in there, just a little bit to tease that out. Carefully trim off the excess. We'll build a very small head. Very small head up front. This is a nymph. And we'll finish it with a whip finish. 1, 2, 3. Nice and snug. I like that. Alright, we'll go ahead and trim this off underneath, and we'll give it a little dab of head cement, a little bit of insurance policy. Down it goes. One little drop. I just lightly rest my left hand and everything works together. So that's pheasant tail nymph number 1 out of that Hareline Dubbin kit. How about that? Questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comments below. We're going to go ahead and do this twice, just like the rest of the flies in this video series. Oh, and before I go too far, I wanted to adjust the zoom just a tick. We'll do that. In combination, we're going to move our camera, move our vise forward just a little bit. Sorry for the rocky bumps. There we go. Alright. Lights, camera, and action. Alright, let's go ahead and reset. We'll tie in another one. Alright, here we go. Start things off. We got this size 14. This is the wet nymph hook. Not to be confused with your dry fly hooks. We're not getting to those dry flies yet. We're going to be getting to those sooner than later. This is number 9 of the top 20. Alright, we'll start our thread about an eye's length behind the eye. Eye. Once we've got that fashioned in there, let's go ahead and trim off our tag end nice and close. Continue our thread wraps towards the bend. And we'll just be mindful of that tip of that hook. Alright. Tail. Let's get our pheasant tail. I don't know, 4 to 6. Line up the tips, pull it out straight. Nice pinch on it. Strip it right off. Tie this in about a hook's length, or a half a hook's length. 1/2. We'll do one soft wrap to capture it, and then we'll continue our locking wraps forward. We're going to take this about halfway. Trim off the excess. We'll swap that out for our medium copper wire. Soft wrap to capture it, and we'll just tie that in on the near side of the hook, right along the flank, all the way to that furthermost rear point, right at the bend, where we'll get more pheasant tail. That's why we call it the pheasant tail nymph, right? Same thing, we're going to grab a few individual barbs, pull them out 90 degrees, a nice tight pinch, and those will come right off. Alright, let's go ahead and tie this in tips forward. I'm going to cinch that back just a little bit. There we go. Once that's secured, we'll advance our thread forward. We'll park our thread right at that halfway point. Alright, now we're going to palmer our pheasant tail forward. Put a finger on it, get it around that tip of that hook. We're going to take touching, if not slightly overlapping, wraps. Almost lost it. Got one rogue. What happened there? Okay. Well, we're going to ignore that piece for now and deal with it after we secure these down. Happened was I broke a piece. Wrap behind, a couple wraps up front. Let's adjust this guy real quick. Alright, we'll trim off our excess here. And we'll advance our ribbing forward. We're going to do these as counter wraps. opposite of the direction we did that peacock. Wow. I've been tying a lot of different flies today. What can I say? All this different material. Our pheasant tail, that's what we're using. This is the pheasant tail nymph, and this is the body. Get to that wire, get that wire up front. A few locking wraps back here. Tension on that. Beautiful. Go ahead and take your scissors, or your wire cutters, or your helicopter, whatever you want to do. Trim that off. And we're going to find more pheasant tail. Here we go. And I like to kind of keep working my way. Some off of this side, some off of that side. Little section. Just like that. I tied in tips forward. And I start on the near side of the hook, and as it secures, the material slightly rolls up and over. Make sure it's on top. Wrap the back towards the bend if you need to, so it gets nice and tight to the body. And we'll trim off our excess up front. Alright. We'll get our peacock herl. 1, 2, 3 strands. 1, 2, 3. And sometimes before I tie in my peacock herl, give it a little bit of a tug. Check the quality of it. We're going to tie these in by the tips forward. Couple locking wraps. Right there at the back end of the thorax. This time I just broke those tips off. That's alright. Take our peacock herl, and I'm going to carefully start twisting it forward in a clockwise direction. And maintain that twist as I work my way forward. You'll find that little sweet spot, right where that peacock herl wants to be. If you over twist it, it will break. Alright, we'll secure that off right behind the eye of the hook. Couple locking wraps behind, wrap in front. And something I've gotten in the habit of is just parking my thread after I've done a couple wraps up front. I'll do a wrap behind, a half a wrap if you will, just park my thread there. So it's not going to slide forward at least until after I trim that off. This helps hold the material in place, or hold the thread in place while I trim off the material. Alright, let's take our wing case, the peacock herl, or what is this, pheasant tail. Carefully fold that over. Couple of wraps behind, wrap in front, and I'll park it behind again. And I'll come in with that bodkin. Just kind of puff that out just a little bit. That's kind of a little optional step. Because after we fold that forward, it kind of compresses and flattens everything out. So, alright, once we're satisfied with that, we'll go ahead and trim off our excess. And we'll build a small head, further locking that material down. Alright, do our whip finish. 1, 2, tray. Just like that, nice and snug. Trim off that tying thread, and we'll add a little drop of this head cement up front. Little dab of glue ya. Just like that, it'll soak right in there. Watch it vanish. So that is a pheasant tail nymph. The P.T.N. Questions, comments, concerns, be sure to throw those in the comments below. Alright, that was number 9. Up next on deck will be Darian's Cool Cat Soft Hackle. I have never heard of that pattern before, but it is here in our kit, and it looks like it's going to be another fun one to tie. So we might, let's see, it's 4 o'clock now. Let's go ahead and plan on popping that one out here pretty sooner than later. So if you're watching these as they're coming out live, stay tuned. We'll be right back shortly. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in after the fact. Happy tying, everybody. Tight lines. Peace.